They stack the deck, but truth won't bend. The judge looks away, the truth gets drowned. Ain't no justice in Canton Town.
Sorry. I effed up. Forgot to turn on the live stream. We're back. Sidebar as the first thing. Hey, Jamester. The only thing I want to know this afternoon is, where did the pizza go?
Yes.
Who sends back a pizza with pepperoni?
Who goes to an Italian joint and orders waffles and pancakes? I mean, there's so many things I need to know about this restaurant.
Who serves pizza at the same time they're serving breakfast?
You know, to be fair, if you made a Munchies restaurant, you should probably have both.
Yeah. Yeah, there's less and less people showing up. It's, I don't know if you can call it an eye-opener or...
You are unmuted.
I don't know.
Jurors, as you know, I think I told you in the beginning, one of my functions is to make sure that a case is tried fairly and efficiently, and not to waste anybody's time. So if I get frustrated at lawyers about something, I try not to, and I don't think I am, but if I seem to cut somebody short, the lawyers are just doing their job. When they request sidebar conferences, they're just doing their job. I am going to try and keep all sidebar conferences to a minimum, but the lawyers are just doing their job.
So you want to go back and correct the record and say, I'm sorry, Mr. Alessi, that I told you no more sidebars, because this should be instantly a mistrial, that you don't give the defense the right to carry the trial to the extent they want.
All right, go ahead, Mr. Alessi, let's bring in the witness.
I just need a witness. Yes.
Hey, Mike, go it. I think Beb might have been on the internet, because a lot of people are saying, "What the F's she doing?"
Certainly.
Yeah, to me it says a lot.
Afternoon, Your Honor.
I don't know. I don't know how sick Mr. O'Keefe has been, but him not being there since opening statements to me is also quite telling.
Your Honor.
Yes.
Good afternoon, Ms. Hyde.
Good afternoon.
I notice you have some documents with you. Could you just state what is in front of you so I know that I might be able to help expedite this if I know what you have in front of you?
Absolutely. I have the first digital forensic analysis report I completed for the previous trial.
Do you have a date? You have several of them.
I do. It's the first one. I apologize. This is the one, I believe it's May. I don't remember the
May
day
of
off the top of my head.
2023,
May of
perhaps?
2023, obviously.
I don't know how real this is, but Rebecca Lavoie, I think is her name, just tested that it works. You can delete individual and time frame bound searches in Safari. Jessica Hyde said there's no user interaction for this. She was wrong. To delete a Safari search on iPhone or iPad, you can either clear the entire history, clear individual entries, or clear specific time frames. To clear the history, go to blah, blah, blah. To clear individual entries, open Safari, tap the history button, then swipe left on the entry and tap delete. You can also clear specific time frames of history within the clear history and website data settings.
Okay,
Thank
but
you, Rebecca
wouldn't that still lead to a database? That wouldn't show it in the particular tab, but would the phone history database still have that? I guess is my question. Is that a dumb question?
She said there was no possible way that you could delete anything. So you delete it, and if it just puts it in the back burner, why delete it then?
Look, I don't
You
know.
clear if you hold down the power button and the volume up, I think it is, you'll reset it and clear your cache as well.
Oh,
Because I used to do that with my iPad when it was getting really slow. I did that power down, and that cleared it.
oh. Like I said, I don't understand any of this anyway.
Jamie, you think everything is different. You're just thinking about that pepperoni pizza and where it went.
Then I have the second one. This was the one that was used in the pretrial motion.
December 2024?
December 20, yes, that's correct. Very nice. Then I have the third one. This is the final one regarding the phone that was identified as Miss McCabe's.
Yes.
And then I have the fourth one, which is the phone of Mr. O'Keefe. And then I do have the opinion from State versus Herrera, but if we don't need that, that's fine.
Okay, very well. I appreciate you telling me that. In March, and you recall on your direct examination, Attorney Brennan asked you questions going to your experience and qualifications. Do you recall those questions?
Yes, I do.
The judge? No.
You were involved in a case, is actually a murder trial in the state of Maryland in a case called State v. Herrera as recently as March of 2025, correct?
Correction, it's an attempted murder.
Attempted murder. And in that particular case, you had attempted to offer various opinions to the court, correct?
Oh.
I object. You have to move along from this case, from what you're talking about. You have to move along from that Maryland case.
So with regard, do you recall another case from the state of Massachusetts, Arrington case, in which you submitted a pro se amicus? Do you recall that case?
Oh, pause it.
And is
Holy shit. Did she have also, ma'am, did you go to Maybelline in the middle of
She
lunch?
she likes Alessi.
Well, so do I. Anywho.
Yeah,
Did
but
she
you're
get
not signaling.
disqualified?
This is baboon behavior where you. This is why. That's why men like it's because it's back from when we were baboons. We like the red buttocks.
Well, so my question is, were
I'm
they
sorry that I
hiding?
have to teach biology on a budget, but that's actually why men like red lipstick.
Okay,
because
but I'm
it's a
geeking
signaling.
out because Alessi didn't. So he let Brennan expend all of his energy on this Maryland case when there's a Massachusetts case that she's been, F8 F'd out of. Holy crap balls! I'm excited now.
And
Sorry
can
for-
we just say, when you try to insert yourself as a pro se expert in a case, kind of like, remember how bad it was that Dr. Russell did that? Is everyone gonna yammer on about how bad it is? No, Jamie, but it's the same basic mindset because it's a signaling, and I'm not gonna read this one.
it correct that in that case, you submitted arguments on behalf of the prosecution in that case?
I submitted an amicus brief, which is not on behalf of anybody. It's as a friend of the court.
Right, but the friends of the court, you took a position in that quote, friends of the court brief, correct?
Took a position on the evidence.
Right, and the position you took on the evidence was that the frequent location history data is reliable and should be used. Is that correct?
The statement is that I do not have that amicus in front of me. It has been a year and a half since I've read it. But that amicus does discuss frequent location history records. And I want to be clear, it speaks to both bias on both sides and negative and positive of submitting it. It was an unbiased writing, and it was not specifically in support of the prosecution.
So you are testifying in this case on behalf of the prosecution, correct?
In this case, I was hired by the prosecution.
Right.
That's correct.
And the
So this is a
prosecution
biased
is paying you
interpretation?
for your services in this case, is that correct?
Yes.
And with regard to this case, you have been paid and have been on this case since May of 2023, correct?
That is correct.
With regard to the various reports that you have submitted in this case, you have mentioned one which is a report with regard to the iPhone of John O'Keefe. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And you have, in that report, you have made a statement, have you not, that from 12:20
She is an Orthodox Jew, so yes, it is a religious headscarf.
50 a.m. on January 29th of 2022 and after, there is no indication of interaction with the device. Is that correct?
There is no indication of user interaction with the device. There is all received until about 6:04 a.m. when there is again Apple Health data that picks up.
I'll ask it again. And you can feel free to turn to page 1529 in that
He
report.
did.
Page 15.
Page 1529.
The report is.
Would you like the
50
page of the
pages.
report or the page NDA number at the bottom? I can do either
Oh,
way.
I'm sorry. I thought you were saying page 15 in the report.
No. It's
I
NDAO
apologize.
1529 or page 7, whatever way
Page
is.
7. Okay, Roger.
Okay, so page 7, you see there's a heading interactive phone activity, correct?
Yes.
And at the top, it says, using a variety of different artifacts, we can see active interaction with the mobile device up until 12:20.
Yeah, you have to
Slow down. Okay, sorry about that.
He's excited about something, y'all.
I'm just trying to
I
move
know.
it along, but I will be slower. I'll repeat, using a variety of different artifacts, we can see active interaction with the mobile device up until 12:20:50 a.m. ET. You see that statement?
Yes.
And that if you skip down, I'm going to skip a couple sentences to the paragraph under the chart, and this is the key part.
Okay.
It says, from that point, and I'm understanding that point to be the 12:20:50 a.m., correct?
Mhm.
You need to say yes or no, I'm sorry.
Yes.
There is no indication of interaction with the device. Did I read that correctly?
That is correct.
Who then
From
Put in-
12:20?
12:32 Whiffen said. So is she wrong or is Whiffen wrong? That's 12 minutes gone. Bye-bye.
What was
I
the
love that
time
Mo
that
just
Leslie
looks
said?
up and goes,
I'm writing it all down. It doesn't make sense. None of words are happening. I just don't know why I'm writing
no, 12:20. 12:20. 12:20. The story Whiffen told us was he last opened his phone and manually closed it at 12:32 something. So what happened in those 12 minutes, and why didn't her magic pick it up, or why did his magic pick it up?
Almost
So-
like somebody tampered with it.
I am going to, and you believe that statement is correct?
Until 6 something a.m.
No, I'm sorry. I'm just asking if that statement is correct. Not if you have other information, but
Thank
is
you,
that
Techno
statement
Stacey.
correct?
No, you can't
Can you
object.
answer that? Rizai, can you answer that, yes or no?
Did I read that correctly?
You read it correctly.
Thank
yes.
you. If we could, Your Honor, have a document that is put up already in evidence and publish Exhibit
Outstanding.
39. And it will be, thank you. And if we could go to slide 82, please.
Dum, 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 dum.
And Ms. Hyde, if I could draw,
No, at 12:20. 12:20. 12:20 is before he apparently arrived at the house. Right? He's
Yeah,
supposed to have arrived around
12:23.
12:23.
Yeah.
your attention to the entry that is,
That's odd.
it says 3209 under app lock, but we know that the 00 is a 12. So it's 12:32:09 a.m. on January 29, 2022. And I'm going to read what it says in red, and this is a timeline of Mr. Whiffen. You know Mr. Whiffen?
I do know Mr. Whiffen.
And so he put in red, not us, he said device locked with lock button for the last time. Do you see that?
I do.
And you know that to lock a phone, you actually have to hit the side button with regard to an iPhone to make it lock. Do you know that?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that is an interaction with a phone, is it not?
I concur.
So that means that that interaction with the phone occurred at 12:32:09, correct?
I did not review that specific artifact. I cannot attest to Mr. Whiffen's exam, only to my own.
So do you have any reason to believe that what is in evidence in this case that Mr. Whiffen has produced, and that do you have any basis to contest the fact that the device was locked with a lock button for the last time on the phone of John O'Keefe at 12:32:09 as you sit here?
I cannot contest it because I do not recall looking at that specific artifact.
Don't you think it would have been appropriate to be accurate
Why wouldn't
as
you?
a digital forensic analyzer
What?
on the topic of the last of an indication of interaction with the device? Don't you think it would have been appropriate to look at that 12:32:09 in any of the tools you said you used on direct?
I did not correlate that artifact in my timeline.
I understand you didn't, and my question is, you make a statement. Well, let me back up. Do you understand that in this case, as in many cases, that matters of seconds in activity can be determinative of a case? Do you understand that from your experience?
Yeah, we just found out that she didn't do a really good extraction. She didn't look at the same artifacts that Whiffen did. So she has 12 minutes gap in her examination of John O'Keefe's phone.
Absolutely.
So it's important, therefore, to get activity right for any data forensic examiner when they're issuing reports about activity, particularly of a decedent. Is that important?
Absolutely.
So isn't it correct?
What happened to her tone?
Yeah.
She got real snippy right there. Oh.
She doesn't.
She sounds like Jamie whenever I say, "Hey, Jamie, you want to stream again?" Yeah, sure.
Examiner
All the
when they're
vowels
issuing
there.
reports about activity, particularly of a decedent. Is that important?
Absolutely.
So isn't it correct that the statement that you make on page 7 of your report, that from that point,
That's no different than any
12/20/50,
other night, though.
there is no indication of interaction with the device, is incorrect?
I cannot make that without going back and reviewing and validating the artifact you just produced from Mr. Whiffen. I would need to validate that in order
So you didn't do your job.
to respond to that.
But as you sit here, you have no basis to contest what Mr. Whiffen has stated, that there was a lock button on the side of the phone of Mr. O'Keefe a full 12 minutes after you say there was no interaction with the device. Is that correct?
I don't. I would have to review that portion.
Is there anything that
Did you do
had
it?
prevented you from reviewing that in that data before you wrote this report?
Not that I can think of. I would have to go and re-review that.
My question is,
I don't know if that artifact, I have not reviewed that artifact, so I cannot speak to an artifact I have not reviewed, and I did not, that is not my report, that's Mr. Whiffen's report, so I cannot speak to that without going back and reviewing that evidence.
Isn't the interaction with the device a lock button readily available to you in the data that you have and had in your possession when you wrote this report?
Yes.
Thank you.
Did she shake her head?
Yeah, a little bit.
You have and had in your possession when you wrote this report.
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, she is pissed. I've seen this look many a time. And that's not Smexy time looking. She put up that nice red lipstick for nothing.
If you could please turn to, in the same report, page 1528, which is your page number 6. And I just want you, please, to go to the, just put a placeholder in that. And if you can now just go to the conclusion.
She could have said, "It's fine," and it would have been just as bad. That's yeah. Rewind 136. What?
I think she admitted to something, but I didn't quite catch it. I think she admitted to having it in her possession and not looking at it.
And you believe that statement is correct?
Until 6 something a.m.
No, no,
I don't know where I'm supposed to go to.
this report.
Not that I can think of. I would have to go and re-review that.
My question is,
I don't know if that artifact, I have not reviewed that artifact, so I cannot speak to an artifact I have not reviewed, and I did not, that is not my report, that's Mr. Withen's report, so I cannot speak to that without going back and reviewing that evidence.
Isn't the interaction with the device a lock button readily available to you in the data that you have and had in your possession when you wrote this report?
Yes.
Thank you.
So she just didn't look at it.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean anything.
The same, if you could please turn to, in the same report, page 1528, which is your page number 6. And I just want you, please, to go to the, just put a placeholder in that. And if you can now just go to the conclusion, which is your page 50. Let me know when you're there.
I'm there.
So in the conclusion, you state that starting at 12:01 a.m. on January 29, 2022, the mobile phone was in use with activity of Waze navigating to 34 Fairview Drive, Canton, MA, active interaction with the screen, steps, audio playing, text messages and calls until 12:31 a.m. EST on January 29, 2002. Did I read that correctly?
Yes.
That statement is also incorrect, isn't it?
On what basis?
Do you believe that statement is correct or incorrect?
I believe that the statement is correct regarding those artifacts that are mentioned in that statement, yes.
Okay, if you could.
So if I only look at what I want to look at, I can write a report and then I can submit it to court. I can be questioned about it. And when someone brings up and say, but you didn't look at everything, I didn't know. So you can't tell me what happened. I can tell you what happened in the part I looked at.
Isn't this the same argument they gave about ARCA? That ARCA didn't get the full report or whatever?
No, this is worse. She had all of the data. She just didn't look at it. She chose, I'm going to stop looking at this. I'm going for a waffle pizza pancake combo. And then I forgot where I was, so I'll just write my report. This lady actually didn't look at all the data she was given, because she was given the same extract that the defense have and Mr. Withen had. And she said, I'm only testifying to the parts I was lazy that day and there was a special on chicken wings. So yeah, I just didn't, I don't want to do it. So her entire testimony should be thrown out because she didn't look at everything. Yeah, she has confirmation bias. She looks, what do I need to find? I'll work backwards. And she talked to Whiffen because Whiffen, she found 227 and thought that it was searched at that time. And then she talked to Whiffen and then she found out, no, it didn't happen at that time. This lady is, I hope the jury, and again, they gave the jury 45 minutes to eat and get out of that food coma she brought us into. And now she's sitting here and saying, I didn't look at shit.
Please, if you could turn to page 1535 of the same report.
Oh, she's pissed.
Can you give me my page number, please?
I will.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. If you could turn to your page 13.
13, Roger.
She did not.
Yes, I'm there.
And do you see an entry that says 12:31:56, which is the same time in the conclusion, but I'm going to develop it.
I believe I know where you're going.
Hold on. I'm sorry. I need to ask the
apologize.
questions.
Yes.
I appreciate you looking to help, but if I could, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you. So it's got health steps and it has steps 36, duration 20.9 or 20.398 seconds. Did I read that correctly?
That is absolutely correct.
So if you look at this data point in your report on page 13, the steps began at 12:31:56, but they ended 20.39 seconds later at 12:32:16. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So therefore,
You better stop it right now, lady.
Interesting.
Within 5 minutes of testimony, she went from, I just put on some red lipstick to, oh, that is correct. She's, oh.
How do they have the same extraction and come up with different times?
Yeah, and why did she turn such a B word all of a sudden? She was there. Oh, it's funny. Interesting question. Now she's, that's correct.
Well, she knows she's about to get ate for lunch. She knows this is about to get bad.
Yeah, you won't have any pancake waffles if you don't change that attitude.
Remember, she's
Or
been in court
your
proceedings
state-
where she has been found unreliable, right? Like this
Yeah.
isn't the first time that it's gone bad for her. She knows what's happening.
Yeah, she's just looking at her CV getting shorter and shorter. Well, her job, her applications for someone who wants her as an expert getting shorter and shorter.
statement in your conclusion, if you could go back to 50, and this is in your conclusion, your statement there is that the steps, the mobile phone is used with activity, including steps, until 12:31 a.m. EST. That should read until 12:32:16, correct?
It depends on your interpretation of interaction. As a user is walking, they're not actively interacting with their device. It's their movement that is. It's not direct interaction with the screen. But I would agree to your view that could be interpreted as needing an additional 20 seconds.
Well,
Isn't
that's
the
just
more
your truth.
correct way to state the conclusion that the active interaction when it comes to steps is not calibrating using the screen, but the phone is calculating steps taken? Isn't that correct?
That is correct, but that's not interactivity with the device.
I understand, but
Yes.
the sentence reads includes steps, and the more accurate way to have stated that would have been to put 12:32:16 instead of 12:31 a.m., correct?
I'm sorry, you just said 12:30. I did this to the minute, not to the second. Could you rephrase what you were stating?
Well, I'll state it again.
I appreciate that.
And you agreed that seconds were important to begin with. And now I didn't put in seconds.
Yeah.
Welcome. So isn't the more correct way to state this important data point in your conclusion, instead of saying active interaction with the screen and steps, etc., until 12:31 a.m. EST. The 12:31 should be 12:32 because the steps that you have on your page 13, by what you concede, is the duration of 20 would have brought it to 12:32:16, correct?
I would state that depends. I believe either is a correct way to state that. Based on interactivity, based on your interpretation, your definition is more correct.
Okay, thank you.
More correct.
Not my interpretation. I'm reading from your report, correct?
Your interpretation that 1232 is a more correct representation of interaction is based on your theory that interaction concludes when the steps end. And I'm saying both would be acceptable.
Okay, so
No.
let's follow up on this.
No, it's either
No.
or.
No,
Yeah, I'm going to do the no.
you can't be.
So I can say, well, in my interpretation, it's only interaction with the phone if you are actively doing this. And he hasn't been doing that all day, so he hasn't been using his phone at all. Because this is my interpretation of interaction, because this is what I do constantly with my phone.
Yeah, that's your phone
You-
making that movement. Sure, Baker. Sure.
That's me shaking the pen movement. But you don't make up your own definition of things. You are on the governing body who makes the rules. They have because you have to prove it in court, and it has to be replicable all over the Americas. So you have an interaction means opening the lock screen and touching the screen, for example. Movement can be steps. But you don't just make, well, my definition is different than yours, so let's agree to disagree.
Yeah, that
You
doesn't
are
make
an
sense.
expert witness who can send a woman to prison for life, and you can't even tell us exactly how this can be replicated. Yeah, it's an interaction because you are moving the phone, so the phone makes an active, oh, I have to count, they are interacting with me right now. If your phone is on the table alone and you don't do anything, that's no interaction. But if you move it up and the screen starts looking for your face, if you're walking around, that's an interaction. But she just made up, no, it's only when you are searching for corn that it's an interaction.
Sure.
Oh, she's
Isn't
so-
it correct that it isn't my theory when the steps ended?
Oh, it's
if I
agree.
could just finish,
Please,
because if
absolutely,
we
sorry.
talk over each other, the stenographer's not going to get both of us. Thank
Agreed.
you. So it's not my theory. It's just the simple math from an entry you've made on page 13 that the steps began at 12:31:56. They ended 20.398 seconds after that, which just doing the simple math is 12:32:16. Did I do the math correctly?
That is correct.
Okay,
I'm not
thank you.
debating that.
Thank you very much. So now what I'd like to do is to go to page
She's about to lose all of her expert
28
witness
of your
testimony
report.
pay.
Yeah.
Not from this trial, obviously, but going
Do you have
forward.
my page number for that? I'm sorry.
Yes, and I appreciate that you go page number. So I center in on the lower one, then I'll go immediately to the one. So it's your page 6, Ms. Hyde.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Just let me know when you're there.
I'm there.
If you could please go to Apple Health Data Steps.
Mhm.
And we've been talking about steps because they're important enough that you put them in a report, correct?
That is correct.
So let's go to an important data point, therefore, in your report, in the chart, which is the second entry, which is, as you've stated, 12:21:10 a.m. Do you see that?
I do.
And you note under the data that John O'Keefe's phone registered 80 steps at 12:21:10.
When he
Did
was
I
in the
read
car.
that correctly?
You did read that correctly.
And those 80 steps constituted 191.253 seconds, as you state, correct?
That is what is stored in that database, correct?
And is my math correct, so that the jury understands this perhaps a little better,
Sure.
that 191.253 seconds equals 3.2 minutes,
Approximately, yes.
approximately?
I'm doing the math in my head, so that's why I said approximately.
Understood. So am I reading this entry correct, that you're stating what the data shows, that 80 steps were taken by the phone of whomever had the phone of Mr. O'Keefe? There were 80 steps taken at 12:21:10 a.m. on January 29, 2022, for a length of time of 3.2 minutes.
That is what the phone registered.
That's what the phone registered. Very well.
You mean
I know
like he
you
walked
kid-
out of the car and into the house and maybe down to the basement or something?
Well, that was 3 minutes before he got there. He wasn't there. I know you kids like your reports extra sloppy. Wow. Thank you, Brendan.
Well, now what I'd like to do.
Oh, Eddie, she turned real pissy when he found out
Real
that
quick.
she didn't do her homework.
Is to turn to the phone of Jennifer McCabe.
Okay.
And that is for your reports. You don't date your reports, so I can't give you a date, but it
I know,
says
it's report 3, I believe, is what you're looking at.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's 3.
Oh, please tell me Jen's phone
And
matches up.
there
with the steps.
is. Bear with me.
That'd be
I'm
amazing.
accommodating your page reference.
Delete
And
the
I'll have
bar.
it
Delete the bar at 12:11, I believe.
soon for you. It is your page 7. And let me know when you are there.
I am there.
Oh, I could eat a romkugle right now.
What the hell is that?
Are you
Romkugle is it's you take like old pastry
Okay.
and then you mush it all together and you put cocoa in it so that it gets brown so you can't tell what's in it. Then you put some rum extract, and then if you do the fancy one, you dip them in chocolate and then you'll put sprinkles on them. It's absolutely heaven. I made if you want to see it, I have done them on my stream back when I still baked a little bit. It's absolutely heaven.
All right.
aware of an issue regarding the time of an interactive phone activity on Jennifer McCabe's phone at 5:07 a.m.? Are you aware of that issue, and particularly a communication to a person named Coco? Are you aware of that?
I would need to check in my report. May I turn to the page for
Absolutely.
that time?
And
I
if
do
it
see
is-
an outgoing call to someone labeled Coco at 5:07:21 a.m.
And you can tell that because in your report on page 11, you list a 5:07:21 a.m. call to a Coco as outgoing, correct?
Correct.
Have you discussed that call with
Wait, what?
any member of the Commonwealth?
No.
That's
Jen's phone,
that
right? Never mind.
Jen's phone had that 507 that wasn't picked up, even though it was answered for 8 seconds.
I got confused.
And again, this call is at 5:07 a.m. on January 29th of 2022, correct?
That is correct.
There is no duration listed for that call. And if you just follow my questions, if you can, yes or no. Is that correct? There's no duration yet listed.
Correct.
So what I want to do is to also note that that omission is not the only omission of durations from this report, or I'll state it differently. Let me withdraw that. there is no population of the duration column for any call from 12:14:30 a.m. on January 29, 2022, all the way through this 5:07:21 call, and you don't start listing durations until 8:59:34 a.m. Is that correct?
Yes, and explainable. The artifact.
I understand
yes,
Mr.
okay.
Brennan can
Sure.
handle those on his redirect.
Absolutely.
So there's not a population of duration of calls after numerous early calls and phone, as you call it, interactive phone activity. Nothing populated in this report until 8:59:34. That's correct?
Yes.
All righty. Now what I'd like to do is to turn to the 22740 artifact that was the subject of much discussion on direct. And I am going to refer to that as an artifact. Is that a parlance that is familiar to you?
Yes.
And if I refer to that as a timestamp also, is that a parlance that's familiar to you?
Absolutely.
So I can refer to 22740 as a timestamp, and you would find that parlance acceptable.
Yes.
Thank you. So I'm going to do that. Just to keep it simple, I'm going to refer to it as a timestamp. Now, you've been on this case working for the Commonwealth since May of 2023, correct?
May 4th, 2023. That is correct.
So you've been on this case for 2 years, correct?
Not actively the entire time.
But you started on this case in May 2023. You issued a report.
This is why you need an LSE. As someone said, it's an LSization right now. That was a bad way of saying assassination. But that's why you need an expert like LSE, because LSE won't do the right, like an AJ would do. He'll just go home, read everything about the subject, talk to an expert, and then he'll kick your ass.
Report in May of 2023, correct?
Correct.
You issued a report in December of 2024, correct?
Correct. After being rehired in November.
Right. And you issued more reports in 2025, correct?
That is correct.
So all of that activity has been on this case, correct?
All on this case. That
and
is
that's
correct.
been all on behalf of the prosecution, correct?
That is correct.
None of that work has been done on behalf of the defense, correct?
That is correct.
So let us now go to the timestamp.
Well, the weather disaster was also good, but I don't think he's the best in crossing experts. Last year, he didn't do well with Hyde. I even think it was Yannetti last year.
Of 22740. Your opinions on what is the meaning of that timestamp have varied from May of 2023
Oh, you better stop that, girl.
on what is the meaning of that timestamp have varied from May of 2023 until today. Is that correct?
No, that is incorrect.
Let's cover that issue.
Sure.
Let's turn to your May 2023 report.
Remember, he
Isn't
didn't want her
it correct
disqualified.
that the report
I wasn't.
and
at the moment.
your findings were pursuant to a request from Detective Lieutenant Brian Tully?
Correct.
And how many interactions have you had with Lieutenant Detective Brian Tully on this case approximately?
I really don't know. I'd have to go look back at email and call logs.
Is it more than 5?
Yes.
Is it more than 10?
Yes.
Is it more than 20?
I don't know.
So somewhere between 10 and 20, would that be fair?
Again, I'd have to review my call logs. I'm not
But it
going to
was
test.
more than 10.
More than 10, I'm sure.
So
What?
Why?
The tech expert who just needs to write a report, maybe Tully will write back and say, hey, I'm a little unsure. What do you mean on page 5 when you say, I gave up, I got into a pizza analogy and I lost it? Oh, I'm going to clear that up. Okay. Why are you having 10 conversations?
With the detective.
Is that not lawyers? Is that not?
Did Tully change your mind like they did the medical examiner, or attempted to anyway?
Yeah. But was she hired pre-trial? Yes, she was hired in 2023. Yeah, that's the problem.
Tully, he's a veteran. He wouldn't make a
issue
rookie move like getting an expert that
was-
disagreed with him in there.
Your use of various forensic tools that revealed a timestamp, 2:27:40 a.m. timestamp on January 29, 2022. Is that correct? Is that a fair characterization of an issue you looked at?
Correct.
Tammy, if you just came here, go back and see the cross-examination. Don't go back and see her morning, because it ended in talking
It's just
about pizza.
confusing. It's confusing, her direct.
So
No,
if
not
you
in this
could
case.
go
On this
to
time round.
page
Not yet.
5 of that report. And I would ask that you go to the last paragraph that starts with "in the instance of the Google search," and let me know when you're there.
I'm there.
So it reads, "In the instance of the Google search, house long to die in cold, that was recovered from the write-ahead log associated."
Sebastian, go back and watch the entire cross-examination.
With the X browser state DB SQLite database with the timestamp of 2:27:40 a.m. was marked by Celebrite as having this timestamp and being deleted. Did I read that correctly?
Fair. Yes.
So you use the words that Google search, house long to die in cold, was associated with the timestamp of 2:27:40 a.m. Isn't that what your words are in this report?
In that database, they are associated. That is correct.
Right. And in terms of page 3, if you could go back, of your report, under relevant findings,
hmm
it starts with, there were 2 searches of interest that took place on the iOS device, and we're talking about Jennifer McCabe's device, correct?
The device that was identified to me as Jennifer McCabe's. Yes.
That's identified to you as Jennifer McCabe. And it's what you talked about on direct examination as her device,
Absolutely,
right?
yes.
It's not a mystery as to whose it is. It's not like you don't know, right?
In direct, I also use the phrase identified to me as Jennifer McCabe's.
Right. But your conclusion is the device you've been working on and analyzing for 2 years is the device of Jennifer McCabe.
That is how it was identified to me.
Do you have a different conclusion as to whose device it is?
I always am very, very careful that I did not assess the ownership. That was information that was given to me, not information that I personally assessed.
So are you uncertain as to whether the device you've been working on for 2 years is the phone
The
of Jennifer McCabe?
device that I've been working on for 2 years is the device that was identified to me.
Oh, she's really building in a lot of, I don't know anything. If anything's wrong, I didn't do it.
Of course. That's
By the mass.
the only option she has.
Yeah, because she's going to lose a whole heck of a lot of jobs now.
So she's state
Hell yeah.
police, Detective Tully, as belonging to Jennifer McCabe when I began working and received that device, as stated in the evidence analyzed section on this same page.
So let's go, and we're talking about, again, to get back to the center of gravity, we're talking about a timestamp of 2:27:40 a.m., correct?
That is correct.
And when you issued your first report in May of 2023, the timestamp you were looking at was 2:27:40 a.m., January 29, correct?
I was looking at multiple timestamps associated with the same 2 searches.
Right. So what I'd like to do, you said multiple timestamps. What times are in the multiple category?
What I was tasked to do was to look at the times, the search, the Google search history, I'm sorry, not Google search history, the Safari history, which includes Google searches, associated with those two search terms within that 12-hour period. That was the particular task, not the task of looking at the 227, just for clarity.
Right, and I appreciate that, but my question wasn't that. My question was, I thought I heard you on direct examination, which is why I repeated the question, what I thought I heard on direct, but I'll ask you the question.
Sure.
You looked at and talked about on direct two potential times for a Safari search, which includes Google, one of which was 2:27:40 and the other one was 6:23 a.m. Is that correct?
I analyzed the meaning of those two timestamps.
Right, so we're just talking about two times, 2:27:40 and then 6:23. Is that correct?
So you are only talking then about the one that we're also talking about 6:24 a.m.
Okay, so we
Eastern
got
time for clarity, because some of these records are in UTC, some are in local.
fair enough. So you've got 2:27:40, you've got 6:23, and you got 6:24 that you were looking at, correct?
There are other timestamps that exist in the realm of what I was looking at, but those ones, correct, are the ones that are relevant in this report.
Exactly. And that's what we're talking about.
Okay,
We're just talking about this report.
Yes.
And so if you look under relevant findings, at the very bottom paragraph, you say, second sentence, a Google search for how long to die cold at approximately 11:23 a.m. and then how long TIDIE in cold took place at 11:24.
That is in UTC. I apologize for not having the timestamp format there, but that is the UTC time. The UTC time equivalent in Eastern Local Time would be 6:23 and 6:24.
So to be clear, in your report, you wrote 11:23 a.m. and 11:24, and you didn't put UTC next
Correct.
to it, did
They
you?
should. You are correct. That should say UTC. That is a typo.
And there's
That's not a
It's not
typo.
a typo. You missed
That's just-
data.
What, if any, expert are you?
Oh, this is a mistake for her. She shouldn't have been here. She shouldn't have took this case.
I try to insert myself in cases and get hammered. Now I only look at the data. I kind of I don't feel for the rest of it, and I fuck up UTC, even though I just made a big deal out. Oh, a lot of things here is in UTC.
This typo, as she calls it, directly changes the information that she's handing to the jury in her evidence.
Yeah,
It makes it inaccurate.
and that should be one of the things that Brennan should have said on page 25 in your report. There's a mistake, right? You meant to say 11 UTC, which would have been 6 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. So now the defense can use it to show how bad an expert she is.
a significant difference between 11:23 and 2:27:40, correct?
11:23 is UTC, so its equivalent in Eastern Time would be 6:23. The artifact of 2:27 is already in local time, so that is in Eastern Time. So what we would be comparing is 2:27 and 6:23 and 6:24 to be appropriate. They're taking into account the data storage and which ones are in UTC and which ones are in local time.
I understand your explanation now,
Perfect.
but in this report, there is no UTC time down. You have two additional times in addition to the two times, two different numbers added to the two, correct?
The UTC was a typo. It should say UTC next to those. And the chart shows all of those artifacts in EST and is clearly labeled that they're all in EST.
So you would agree that it's better stated to state it a different way than you have in your report?
I would say that both are equivalent. I should have had UTC there. But yes, it's easier for the audience to speak in EST. I would say forensics examiners typically communicate in UTC, but we translate for our reports. And I should have either communicated that in EST or included UTC. I will definitely contend that.
So in terms of your May 2023 report, your first report in this matter,
Yes.
You on page 5,
Mm-hmm.
in the sentence underneath the block paragraph state, in the instance of the Google search, house long to die in cold that was recovered from the write-ahead log associated with
That's correct.
the X browser state with a timestamp of 2027:40 a.m. was marked by Celebrite as having this timestamp and being deleted. Did I read that correctly?
You read that correctly.
Now let's move ahead to page 7 of your report.
Mm-hmm.
Up at the top above conclusion. Importantly, at this time, you state, testing shows great inconsistency with timestamps parsed from this file. It is, however, definitive that the page existed in a tab.
Correct.
While a definitive reason as to why the timestamp is listing the time of 2/27/40 is unknown,
Mhm.
the time is inconsistent with the timestamps associated with the same search. Did I read that correctly?
You did read it correctly.
So as of May 2023, you said the definitive reason as to why the timestamp is listed as 2/27/40 is unknown, correct? I'm just asking, is that what you wrote? Unknown.
I believe that the wording here is, sorry, I know I do use the word unknown. It says, while a definitive reason as to why the timestamp listing is the time of 02/27/40 is unknown. Sorry.
So the answer is yes. You listed
Yeah,
it as unknown. I actually think that they will say it, oh, finally he's getting to something, because she couldn't answer a question the first 90 minutes she was on the stand. And everything she has said since she came on the stand is, yeah, it was a mistake. Yeah, I didn't do my job. I don't know.
Oops.
Yeah.
Oops.
Yeah, she's so condescending. Oh, I think the wording is exactly what you read.
Yes, you read it correctly.
So you use the word unknown, your word in your report.
Yes.
Okay, so now what I'd like to do is to go on
That is on point.
to
It's
He
on
has the
point.
little dimple.
He's got the crease. It's perfect.
the first proceeding in this matter. Do you remember giving testimony in a proceeding about a year ago under oath?
Yes, I do.
I am now going to go to that testimony, and if at any point you would like to have a copy of that, if it's the honor, if your honor would like, I will do it, but I'm going to start and then we'll see how it goes.
I bet it's going to go well.
So
Yeah.
bear with me a moment. Do you recall in that testimony stating that you processed the image in several forensic tools? I use Celebrite Physical Analyzer, and then you list many other tools. Do you remember giving that testimony?
We have a page.
I'm sorry, Mr. Brennan, I thought I'd given it 1-12. My apologies if I didn't. It's June 14, 2024, page 1-12.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So do you recall giving testimony about the various tools you use for this timestamp?
I do.
And do you recall stating that those tools were commonly used digital forensic tools that are very standard? Do you recall that?
I'd have to see the wording that
Can
I
you move
used
the
at that
closed
exact
caption?
time.
Would it be helpful to refresh your recollection if I showed you that?
It would be great. I would greatly appreciate that because I do not recall the precise wording, but I know that I
Fair
spoke to the
enough. I'll
tools
get
I
that for
used.
you. May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes, Mr. Lessie, you offered a transcript. Do you have the whole
I have
transcript?
the whole transcript if that helps.
It might speed things along.
Agreed.
Okay.
We have one. I'll provide it. Ms. Hyde, I'm going to leave you a transcript.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
She actually seems pretty interested in this.
So,
Yeah.
may I approach you on?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. Brennan.
112. Thank you. You are. That's, let me turn it over to you. It's going to be 112. Okay. Yep. You're welcome.
Thank you so much. And you said we're on 112?
Yes, please.
1-12.
Highlighted on the 113, I see it. I see it's highlighted on the copy, so I
Right,
figured
so
that's the
what I
one.
wanted to do, the reason I said 112 is that's where I
Oh,
started with my
sorry.
previous question. So I'm not going to repeat the question, but just to orient you, so you have a fair context for the questioning.
Fair.
So I started at the bottom, 112, now I'm moving to 113, and I'm starting with line 7. Do you see that?
I do.
And it says, yes, they are commonly used digital forensic tools that are very standard for other forensic examiners to use on mobile exploitation. Did I read that correctly?
That is correct.
And then if you go down to line 22, you testified in that proceeding. So it's important to use multiple tools so you can see the results from different data sets, and be able to compare those results and enhance those with manual analysis. Did I read that correctly?
You did. That's correct.
And then going up to page 114, line 5,
Slow down a little bit, Mr. Lessie.
I will, Your Honor, thank you. Yeah, that's very, very typical for me to process with multiple tools to ensure that I'm getting the most complete interpretation from forensic tools. Of course, you go beyond that with your analysis, but it's absolutely pertinent to that. Did I read that correctly?
That is correct.
And then lastly, for this section at page 114, 17, the Sanderson tool is meant to look at specific type of data structures called the SQLite database. SQLite databases are very nuanced, and this particular tool allows you to take that database and explore it at a deeper level than the other forensic tools.
Yeah, imagine this guy bills $1,800 an hour and is doing this for free. He's putting $1,800 in Karen
An
Reed's
hour.
pocket every hour.
Wow. Did I read that correctly?
Yes, you did.
Thank you. Now if we can go to page 124 of the very same testimony. And feel free to go back a page just so you can see to page 123 that the topic is the 2/27/40 timestamp associated with house long to die in cold. Do you
Can I
see-
have a moment just to review and get context?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Page 123:13, but if you need to go back further, feel free. We'll start with page 1-23, and this is your testimony. On line 16,
Mm-hmm.
I have them in the timestamp order that is associated with the artifact. You use that word associated again, correct? Did I read that
Correct.
correctly?
Yes.
And that's associated with the Google search house long to die in cold in a 2:27:40 a.m. timestamp, correct?
That is correct.
Now, if you turn the page of the testimony, you state back then that on page 124, line 1, the browser state DB is an artifact that speaks to when tabs are moved. So when you're using your browser and you open different tabs, you may have a search that this time pertains to the time that the tab moved. It could be lots of things. Did I read
Correct.
that correctly?
You did.
You did.
Not one thing, you said it could be lots of things, correct?
That is correct.
And then you go on in line 10 and you talk more, and then you go down to the bottom. You go down to line 20 and you testified, we cannot tell by this particular artifact what time that search occurred. Did I read
Absolutely.
that correctly?
It's specifically pertaining to that particular artifact that gives in browser state DB that does not tell us what time a search occurred. That is correct.
Right. So you stated, and it was your statement then, we cannot tell by this particular artifact what time that search occurred, correct?
That particular artifact.
Okay, so now let's keep going.
Mhm.
It's a religious headgear.
About when a search to go, and feel free to go back line 16. You may have a search that this time pertains to the time that the tab moved. It could be lots of things. Did I read
Correct.
that correctly?
You did.
Not one thing, you said it could be lots of things, correct?
That is correct.
And then you go on in line 10, and you talk more, and then you go down to the bottom. You go down to line 20, and you testified, we cannot tell by this particular artifact what time that search occurred. Did
Absolutely.
I read that correctly?
It's specifically pertaining to that particular artifact that gives in browser state DB that does not tell us what time a search occurred. That is correct.
Right. So you stated, and it was your statement then, we cannot tell by this particular artifact what time that search occurred, correct?
That particular artifact.
Okay, so now let's keep going.
Mhm.
Why does she keep looking at the jury like that?
Because she thinks she's winning.
If you
them.
go to page 129 of this transcript.
She thinks she's doing really well, and she wants to ingratiate. It's kind of like when you saw
Okay.
AH.
At the top.
So you hit him.
Sure.
Line
Yeah.
1.
But I just slapped him.
227 isn't necessarily one time when the tab was closed. That's in my report. I say it's undetermined. Remember, we were just reading your undetermined
Absolutely.
in your May 23 report?
Correct.
Because there's a lot of things that can cause that timestamp to be there, including tab being moved, tab being minimized. The next sentence. I don't know exactly what caused the tab to get that particular entry, but it's not, that timestamp is not indicative of the time of the search or any URL that's visited. But the first part of it is, I don't know exactly what caused the tab to get that particular entry. Did I read that correctly?
You read 100% correctly.
Thank you. Now, if we could turn to page 130 of your testimony. I need to object.
What's wrong with her? You need to see that sidebar. This is called a tactical sidebar. This is going really, really bad for my expert. So I'm going to just go up and say, well, he's misreading or something.
Thank you for your patience.
It's called double
Absolutely,
Zeus.
sir.
What I'd like to do is to go back to your testimony in the first proceeding, and we can go back to page 1-30.
I am there.
Thank you. So I am going to go back just because there's been some time and give some context. So we're talking about the 2:27:40 a.m. timestamp, correct, at this page location?
We've been talking about that for several pages. Yes, that's correct.
You're absolutely correct. We've been talking about it for several pages, and bear with me. I think this
No
may
problem.
be either the second to last or the last. So there you testified with regard, this was when you're referring to an artifact. You've agreed that timestamp is a fair synonym. You say on line 5, that means it wasn't in the regular database. It was in the write-ahead log. And to Celebrite's credit, that tool actually parsed the write-ahead log and displayed it where the other tools did not. So did I read that correctly, number one?
You read it correctly.
So am I correct that here, what you're stating is Celebrite was actually showing the 2:27:40 a.m. timestamp at that time during your testimony in the first
On
proceeding?
that date, that is correct.
Okay,
Yes.
so I just wanted to establish that, and you were
Absolutely.
giving Celebrite credit for actually showing that timestamp at that time of 2:27:40 at the time of your testimony back in June of 2024, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so now let's go to page 1-36.
136, you said?
136, yes.
Thank you.
And on line 12, you note that so Celebrite and Magnet Axiom,
Mhm.
and then you elaborate, both Celebrite Physical Analyzer, which is a specific tool, right, of
Correct.
Celebrite, and Magnet Axiom, another specific tool, correct?
Correct.
Both have file system viewers that then have SQLite database viewers. And you, skipping down to line 17, you talk about they don't allow for deep analysis of the write-ahead logs, which is why in my analysis I use the specialized Sanderson forensic browser for SQLite, correct? I read
That is correct.
So is it fair to say that what you did up to this point,
He'll just go up and yell. He's going to yell, so 227 didn't happen.
He's gonna go, come on.
Yeah.
This isn't important, is it? Come on.
Bev, early day, first call on me.
in 24. With regard to the 2:27:40 a.m. timestamp on January 29, 2022, you applied a variety of tools to analyze the issue of when did the Google search occur that you use the words associated with a Safari, a Google search, house long to die in the cold.
There's a little bit of wording I would correct there if that's okay.
Right, but so let me see if I can ask the question
That'd be great.
a different, more simple way.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So you used a variety of tools to analyze that house long to die in the cold search, correct?
Plus manual analysis and testing, yes.
Plus manual analysis and testing. All right, now let's leave the testimony.
Okay.
And let's go to your next report. And your next report is December 2024. Do I have
I have
the
it correct.
chronology correct, Ms.
That
Hyde?
is correct.
So in December of 2024,
Mhm.
just approximately 6 months ago, you issued another report, correct?
That is correct.
And you got the request for that report also from the Norfolk District Attorneys, correct?
That is correct.
And you state in regard, well, that report regarded the analysis of the same timestamp, correct?
Correct.
To 2:27:40 timestamp.
Mhm.
And in that report, under relevant findings, you state, and this is December of 2024, so it's from your May 2023 report, it's approximately a year and a year and a half. Is that approximately from your May 23rd report?
Approximately.
Approximately a year and a half?
Yes.
So a year and a half after what we just reviewed in your May 23rd report, and then just months after the testimony of June, right? So about 6 months after your
6 months later.
June testimony that we just went through, you went and looked at this issue again, correct?
That is correct.
And isn't it correct that when you were asked to look at the same timestamp in December of 2024, that Celebrite removed the timestamp from their tools?
Celebrite did remove that timestamp from the tool. That is correct.
Okay. And that timestamp was the subject of extensive reports and testimony that you participated in the first proceeding, correct?
That is correct.
And even though that timestamp, 2:27:40 a.m., that showed up in Celebrite tools, Magnet Forensic Axiom showed up, that was removed by Celebrite, correct?
Celebrite no longer reports it. The evidence is still in the data. I want to be clear, just that it doesn't change the data. They just removed it from their automated parsing and reporting.
Right, so they
Correct.
removed it from their automated parsing and reporting, correct?
Yes, they did. That is correct.
However, your former company, Magnet Forensic Axiom, still shows it. Yeah.
Magnet Axiom Forensics currently shows it as a carved artifact and still shows that and gives a description in our artifact reference guide as to what they believe causes that artifact.
I'm going to ask the question.
Yes, it does.
Magnet Axiom Forensics, where you used to be the director of forensics.
That is correct.
Still shows that timestamp.
Yes, yes.
But Celebrite,
So what? So what?
Of course,
you
I do.
remember that there's an SNL character played by what's this guy? The guy who plays the bass. So what? He has the same. I can't remember him now. I have to look it up. Sorry.
I have no idea.
You will. But her old company where she wrote the protocol still shows the timestamp.
Doesn't. In the
That is
automated
correct.
tools.
That is correct in their automated parsing.
And you would agree that Magnet Forensics is a very reputable company, correct?
Correct.
Let's go back to your December 2024 report. Do you recall just moments ago when we went through your testimony in June of 2024 in the first proceeding where you stated various times how it was, I'll use the term best practices, to use multiple tools to analyze the timestamp?
Correct.
And you used many tools back then to analyze that timestamp. And you testified to those many tools on your direct examination, correct?
Correct. Yes.
However, in December of 2000,
It's Fred Armisen when he impersonates Joy Behar from The View.
Fred Allison.
Armisen. He has the same mannerisms.
When you return to analyze the 22740 timestamp, how many tools did you use to analyze that timestamp? Can you give me just a number? How many tools?
At least 4.
Well, in your report, let's go to your report, what your report says.
Mm-hmm.
Can someone share Lefty's link, please, so we can get him the last 15 subscribers and he can stop crying?
Dang.
So in your report, you state that under relevant findings, do you not, that review of data from Celebrite shows that the artifact of a Google search from a Safari suspended state tab with a search term, house long to die in cold, and I'm going to skip over, in addition to my own previous report, no longer shows a last visited timestamp.
I think that is not clear. The skipping there makes it sound like my report no longer shows that, and that's not what's
That's a fair statement. That's a fair statement. Let me rephrase it.
Thank you.
Way. You're welcome. In this report, you speak about Celebrite release reports, correct?
Are you referring to the Celebrate release notes
The
that come
release
out?
notes at the bottom,
Perfect.
right? You referred to that?
That's correct.
And that release note states that Celebrite has removed the timestamp value from records, and I'm assuming that's a reference to Celebrite's.
Celebrite no longer parses that result. That is the statement in this report. Correct.
Right. And so I'm going to go to page 4 of your report.
For sure. I'm there.
And I'm going to go down all the way down to the conclusion. In that report, is there reference to any company other than Celebrite in this entire report?
In this report, no.
Okay, thank you. Now let's go to your prior testimony in the first proceeding, where you said that it was important to use multiple tools.
Absolutely.
Do you still stand by your position that you've given today and that you gave in June, that it's important to use multiple tools?
Absolutely.
Now let's go back to the issue of the extraction of Jen McCabe's phone. And what I want to do is to cover a concept and see if
As
I've
you
got
should
this correct.
be.
Are you familiar with the phrase Apple source codes?
I'm sorry. Can you please repeat?
No worries, sir. Are you familiar with the phrase Apple source codes?
Apple's source code? Absolutely. Yes.
This is where
she will be the last witness today because it's 3:00 over there and they end around 4. And now they just got into Apple source code and we are a little behind.
She
Probably
might
gonna
not be
be
the
a-
last.
This because I think the Apple source code is going to be like the final blow from Alessi, so he might be wrapping up fairly soon. Actually, he's
I
going to
don't
point
think
out
so.
these Apple source codes and demonstrate how she's
Can
assuming.
I just say,
and that's what the
whenever
case
you
is
say
about, she
that,
got
I
screwed
want Apple sauce on my waffle.
up. On your waffle.
Can I say that this woman should have a warning? When you're operating heavy machinery, she shouldn't be anywhere on the radio. Also, my sons are like, "What is she talking about? I thought a guy got killed. Why are you talking about artifacts and crap?" And I'm like, first of all, we don't use the word crap. And second of all, I have no idea.
And isn't it a fact that Apple keeps its source codes proprietary, meaning very few people have access to it?
That's correct. It is closed source is the term we would use.
Closed source.
That would be the term of art, correct?
And they keep it so close that they call it closed source.
And it's not just Apple. Lots of tools are closed source. That just means that the code isn't available like it would be for the tool I mentioned earlier, iLeap. That's an open source tool. Anyone can look at the code. For Apple, we cannot go look at the code that makes your phone run. That's correct.
And isn't it the case, and I referred to that as the MB postulate, it's a shorthanded, but I don't need to have you refer to it that way.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that phrase? I was unfamiliar with it.
I'm going to skip it.
Okay,
I'll
thank
just
you.
go on. Basically, the concept that Apple has source codes that are closed sources. So I just refer to them as Apple's closed sources. Wouldn't the best information about when a search occurred, what it's associated with, wouldn't the best information be in the Apple source code to answer that question?
It is acceptable in digital forensic science and in accordance with the NIST Science Foundation papers to conduct testing to determine how the functionality of something works. You do not need access to the source code to be able to speak to an artifact.
My question isn't that. My question is, isn't the best place to go is to the Apple source codes themselves? Or are you saying these physical analyzer tools are just as good, and the information they pull is just as good as an Apple source code?
Those are very, those are incongruent statements. Apple source code is not a healthy way to do an examination because it would be so onerous, and we do not know the level of documentation. We don't know the language. That is not necessarily the most effective way to determine what data is. Forensics tools parse results of how data is. They don't interpret them. The examiner interprets them and provides meaning. And I would like to state that those three things should not be conflated. They are very individual concepts.
I think you misunderstood my question.
I probably did it because that's what I was seeing.
My question is this. Isn't the best source for information about data in an iPhone contained within Apple source codes?
Not necessarily. Because that doesn't perform.
How could she know that?
Is a better source in a practical sense to being able to determine what something is, as opposed to zillions. And no, I don't.
Because what I heard was, yes, if we had the code, it would be much more accurate, but it's onerous. And these things unzip them and parse them and do all this stuff for us. So if I had to go through all the Apple code, it takes a long time. Because the word she used was onerous, not impossible, not difficult, onerous. So a job she doesn't want to do, a giant job. So these are cheats.
You're talking
she
about a
doesn't have
lady who
access to the
didn't want to look at
code.
the data she was delivered. Imagine if she had to source through source code as well.
But
Come on now.
nobody has access to these codes, so nobody knows what they're like, right? Like you have no idea. They might
No,
be
but
the most
it
simple
would,
and
you would have to learn that language.
right. I
I don't
get
know
that.
what I'm
But
talking about.
she's making statements saying that it's onerous and it's more complex and stuff like this, right? But she has no idea. It might be the easiest code. It might be the most direct information
True.
deliverer. She's making these assumptions that her way is better, and she has no clue what the other way consists of. I guess that's my problem.
Safe travels,
I
keep
don't know the number
butts.
because it's closed source. Lines of code that may or may not have different levels of documentation. Apple themselves wouldn't be able to, any individual
no
there who
idea.
has access wouldn't know every feature of how every element works. Testing through the methodologies described in NIST is the accepted methodology in our science, not reviewing the source code.
I'm going to try it a different way. I understand what you're saying is, if I got it correct, you correct me. Are you saying that these physical tools make it easier to interpret and view the data?
I did not speak about the tools at all in the statement I just made.
Okay.
I spoke about manual testing and checking the functionality and what results. Parse tools, again, these are three separate concepts. The concept of code and actually reviewing code to make a determination is different from parse tool results, is different from doing testing and validation. Those are separate concepts. They should not be commingled as if they equate to each other.
So have you ever learned of, have you ever spoken with Mr. Whiffen? Ian Whiffen?
I have spoken with Mr. Whiffen historically, but not since the term of this trial.
Have you ever spoken to Mr. Whiffen about whether the Apple source codes are the best source of information about topics like timestamps? Have you ever spoken? That's just a
I have
question.
not had
Have
that
you ever talked to him?
conversation with Mr. Whiffen, no.
Okay, all right. I want to move on to, and do you regard Mr. Whiffen as a reputable?
Mr. Whiffen is a reputable forensics examiner, and I've actually reviewed his work in other instances and peer-reviewed his papers.
So you have regard for his
I have
reputation?
regard for his
I'm sorry,
reputation.
we have to wait for each other.
Oh,
to
yes,
talk
I'm
through the
sorry.
trend. It's all right, no worries. So you regard,
Are expert allowed to do that? Vouch for other experts?
Well, she did.
Absolutely.
I mean, they're in the same field. You would think that they should be able to. They often discredit each other. Why wouldn't they be able to credit each other?
I'm not sure that you can use one witness to validate another witness.
I
Can
don't
Jen
know.
McCabe
Maybe
say
not.
everything Carrie told you was true? I didn't watch it, but she's
Well, no, you'd
very
have
reputable.
to. You'd have to. Otherwise, you'd never be able to put two experts for the same thing, right? Like if they
She can just say, "Yeah, I know of his work," but she said he's very reputable. That's a determination of his character.
regard for the opinions of Mr. Whiffen generally, correct?
Absolutely,
And
yes.
you believe he has a solid reputation, correct?
Absolutely, that is correct.
Now let's turn to the History DB database. You are
bad.
familiar with History DB? History DB, are you familiar with that phrase?
I am familiar with that phrase.
Okay.
Some
Do
ladies say
any
it's too
of
long.
the house-long searches appear in the History DB?
In this instance, no, we do not have artifacts in the history DB of either of those two searches.
So I want
I'll
to
remember.
just repeat that in a different way. So the History DB, is that considered a valid and valuable source of information in an iPhone?
That is a valuable artifact for Safari history. That is correct.
That's
But
great.
the house-long searches we've been discussing do not appear in that History DB, do they?
That is correct.
You spoke about
Why not?
PYF, PDF on your direct testimony. Do you recall that?
I do. It's the Python framework for PDF. It is a GitHub tool one can download from GitHub to utilize to create PDFs using Python code. So a developer and a tool
I'm
would
trying
integrate
GitHub
that to
tonight
create a
when I'm
PDF.
And the PYF, PDF can have the variables set, correct?
Yes, the Python script allows the developer to set things such as their name that they created the document. Yes.
I want to go to the
what's-
extraction of Jen McCabe's phone that you talked about. on direct
He's
exam.
losing me right now.
What's a
Is the
Python?
hash value
Why are they in a
signed or
computer?
unsigned?
A hash value isn't signed. I believe
I think
your
it's a
question you're asking
coding
is if
program.
the Adobe document that contained the PDF that contained the hash values. Are you asking me if that's signed? Because a hash value is something that matches. A hash value isn't signed.
Let me ask it this way. Is there any hash value associated with Jen McCabe's phone that is unsigned?
That is not a valid question. I apologize. We don't refer to hash values as being signed or unsigned. We would refer to the PDF that contains that value as being signed or unsigned.
Have you ever read a report of Mr. Ian Whiffen in this case?
I have, but I have to be clear. I have not read all of Ian's reports. I've only read some, so I don't know if I read some of his earlier reports.
Do you recall reading a report of Mr. Whiffen where he references a hash value being unsigned associated with the iPhone of Jennifer McCabe?
Can I see said report so I can validate if I did or did not? I'm not sure based on just that, because I wouldn't use the term hash value being signed. I did see a report in which Mr. Whiffen spoke to the PDF not being signed.
I just want to try to shortcut this and work off your last statement. You're now saying you do recall seeing a report of Mr. Whiffen where he said a PDF was unsigned?
I need to see, I do remember him referencing the PDF. I would need to see the report, especially since the characterization of hash value being unsigned is not a term of art that I am familiar with in our field.
Let me ask if you agree or disagree with this statement. This value can be used to compare with the original hash calculated at the time of extraction in order to validate the extraction data. However, this requires authentication of the original hash value, which is not possible with gray key extractions, as the PDF containing the extraction hash value is unsigned. Therefore, this hash value could be used as a suggestion of authentication, but cannot be guaranteed 100%. Do you agree or disagree?
His statement there says the PDF is unsigned, not that the hash value is unsigned.
Right, but it's nonetheless unsigned, correct?
The PDF is not signed. That is a correct
Did you see the hash values?
statement. Gray key PDFs that purport that value are not an Adobe signed document.
Do you know the history of the extraction of Jen McCabe's phone? It's a yes or no.
Can you provide more clarity? What do you mean? Do you mean from the time the image was made? Do you mean from the time the device was received? Because I don't know the information pertaining to the receipt of the device into evidence, and then I only have the documentation of the image forward. So I want to be clear about what period we're talking about.
It's an excellent point, and I am going to follow up with some questions.
Okay.
In an extraction, doesn't the extraction from a phone start with the raw data, raw image? You tell me, when someone brings a phone in, what's the first step that gets taken in order to do a full file extraction? What's the first step?
It depends. There's got to be steps with regard to network isolation. I need to know if the device is AFU or BFU at that point. So I don't have that information from this case, if that is the question.
I think
get from
the device is FU.
So what I'd like to do, and this may be my last section of questioning, I'd like you to describe the ideal situation as to getting the most reliable data from an iPhone from the start. What's the most reliable way to do it?
I would say the most reliable way is following the recently released SWIG-DE Scientific Working Group on Digital Evidence document on best practices of evidence handling, preservation, and imaging. I may have that title slightly out of order, but it is the document released this January.
And tell me what that is.
Sure. In that, the first thing, from which point are we starting? Are we starting like extracting the data using a tool, or are we talking on scene, taking the device into evidence?
The latter.
Okay. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to ensure that you are isolating the device. This is also going to depend on condition from the network. So typically this would be done with a Faraday enclosure in a best practice. However, there are alternative ways of isolating from the network, such as disabling all of the communication protocols, such as Wi-Fi, airplane mode, etc. The next step, once you've isolated, but prior to, you also want to make sure you're continuing battery stat. So if a device is on, you want to keep it powered on. If it's off, you want to keep it powered off. That's a general statement. So the best way to do that is to attach a battery charger. Just like when your battery runs low, you plug in a charger in the back of these battery packs. We do that with that before we put it in the Faraday bag. A Faraday bag is an enclosure that blocks signals from coming to the device. This is so a remote wipe command couldn't be sent, or so that more data isn't received to the phone, because phones are live and constantly obtaining data. So we're going to have
Maddie B, would you be willing to come on and explain this crap?
I don't know the status of this device.
In pizzas.
The next steps are going to depend on what state that device is, and what make and model that device is, and what the current support for that device is. There are multiple types of extraction methods of phones. In the modern day on iOS, a full file system image, what we had on the devices in question in this case, is considered the gold standard because it has the most robust information. So at this point, the next question is what's the best image type? And that's going to depend on if we have a passcode or if we don't have a passcode.
If I could,
please.
And I'm going to allow you to continue.
Yeah, please.
I don't want to break it down for the jury. So what I now want to do, you've stopped at a certain point, but you've talked about securing, what I would call securing the phone, right? And then making sure that there's no data swipes. You talk about airplane mode, Faraday bag, Faraday box, right? Do you know whether any of those protocols were followed for either the iPhone of Jen McCabe or John O'Keefe?
As I mentioned, I was not there for those processes. I don't have documentation of it. As mentioned, what started where my receipt of the device is from the image.
Exactly. So you don't know.
I can't testify to processes I did not or was not available or aware of.
Fair enough. But do you have a little bit of hint as to whether the phone of Mr. John O'Keefe was properly secured in airplane mode, a Faraday bag, or a Faraday box, based upon your own report of the iPhone of John McCabe? Can you determine that from page 5 of your report?
Obviously, there is data signals that are still being made and created. I believe that is what you're referring to. So the assumption is that I don't know at which point a Faraday bag is employed, but I also want to be clear. I don't know when, I don't have information outside of the digital forensics realm about this case. So I don't know precisely when the phone was taken into custody by law enforcement.
Fair
Who
enough.
does know that?
Assume
Who do know that?
Mr. O'Keefe was deceased around the latest 9 a.m. on January 29th, 2022. Isn't there activity on that phone, health data activity, up to around noon of January 29th?
Health data activity would continue to be reported regardless of if the device was isolated from the network or not. Health data has to do with the movement of the device. So if the device was being moved even within a Faraday bag, that data would still be populated.
How about location data?
Location data is unlikely to be reported in a device that is Faraday enclosed, but I do not know what location data you're referring to, so I cannot speak in absolutes without having a better reference to the artifacts in question. If you're saying it's in my report, I'll look at it, but again, I never knew when the phone was seized, so it was not part of my initial analysis. Do I have permission to look at that time? Thank you, Your Honor.
I'm going full Sith Lord. We deal in
So-
absolutes now, and I'm
Bear
absolutely
with me, it's a
done
big
with this
report, as you know,
It is a big report.
and it was at the bottom of my stack.
Pardon me?
All right, it was at the bottom of my stack. I had to lift up the other ones to find it. All right, so.
Your Honor, may I
Ma'am,
assist in?
we don't want
pointing
to
her
see your
to a page?
stack.
That'd be
Thank
great.
you. If
Unless
you
it's a
could
stack of them
turn to
pancakes.
that report on your page 47 and continue
Valhalla.
on to page 50.
I do see incoming data that is consistent with the device not being Faradayed, such as the receipt of SMS messages, notifications from Ring, etc.
So, the iPhone of Mr. O'Keefe was not secured in the manner you described before we got to this, as would be the best practice with regard to getting the most accurate data from a phone. That is, once it comes in, that it's either be put in airplane mode, Faraday bag, or Faraday box. That's correct. By your own report, you see activity.
I do see activity. It was not Faradayed. Faraday prevents wiping of the device and additional data. So actually, in this instance, it doesn't appear that the device was at risk of wipe because it was not wiped. And we actually have more data because we get to see the data that continue to come into the device. I'm not saying that's in accordance with best practice. I'm saying that that's what I see based off of what you just had me reviewing the data.
It sounds like you're trying to justify.
Oh, I'm not
if
trying to
right or
justify.
wrong, you tell me. It sounds like you're trying to justify the fact it wasn't secured. Am I correct? Or
No, you're incorrect. I'm just stating we have, you asked if we had more data or less data. We actually have more data with it not being Faradayed, but no, best practice would be to Faraday.
that
I
wasn't my
100%
question.
agree.
My question wasn't, is there more or less data? My question was simply, doesn't your own report
Sure.
show activity up until noon on January 29, 2022?
Correct. And for clarity, my scope was till noon, so I don't know if there was activity beyond that.
Right, but as far as your scope goes, I want to be clear.
Yeah.
There is activity on
Absolutely.
this phone,
Absolutely. The
which
phone-
shows that it was not put in airplane mode, it was not put in a Faraday bag, and it was not put in a Faraday box, and that failure is not best practice.
Correct. It is not in accordance
Thank
with the
you.
best practices. I agree. I would have Faradayed it.
Thank you. So
Ev, I'm going to need you to mercy
You know,
in today.
that's okay.
Right now.
I have no further questions. Thank you for answering my questions.
God, not
Mrs.
Brennan
Thank you for your
again.
questions. Have a great day.
I need to find an emotional support cat. I'll be back.
So,
So basically,
She
when
did-
she said there could have been lots of reasons for that deletion, one of those could have been a remote delete from a phone not being in a Faraday bag, which is why they put it in a Faraday bag when they collect evidence.
and
Can we just
she
skip
doesn't
over
know
Brennan?
anything because she didn't really look at the data. She looked at the data she liked to look at, and she didn't look at the data. We don't know. Maybe they cut it off at 12 because someone claimed that Ring videos had been deleted. Maybe that phone that had access to the Ring camera, even though Ring said there was no deletion, but they didn't contact them close enough to the time so they could know the if anyone had tampered with it, because the good old Lally
Okay.
forgot to send the court order, so more than 30 days elapsed. But no one looked at the phone data after 12:30. Could have been interesting to see what happened with the phone after 12 o'clock.
Okay, I have an off-topic question, but it is very pertinent for today. If I make Mr. Mo stop and get adult flavored root beer, can I make myself a root beer float out of an alcoholic beverage? Not for science, I'm willing to try this. Just
What
today.
kind of alcoholic beverage?
Well, that not your grandpa's root beer.
Oh yeah, you'd be fine.
Sounds good.
It'll turn into something like a Kahlua, like a
Science.
mudslide, but you know.
I'm doing
Kahlua.
this for science. I have to drink like a Cantonian.
Get it?
What are
approve.
they
You do
called?
you, Bill.
Cantonites? Cantonese?
I think it's imbeciles.
Cantonese. Not all of Canton, just the government.
Oh, dear God, not this douche. I mean, Brennan,
Absolutely.
Of course.
Whenever you're ready.
You're welcome. You were asked when you began working on analyzing phones in this case, and you said it was in May. Was that of May of 2023?
May of 2023, May 4th, 2023 is the email I have of a note. Thank you. Yes.
Yes, and it's stored for 30 days. And if you don't send your request to have the data, it'll disappear. And then you can say, well, there's no data.
It's easy to remember because May the 4th be with you.
When you first were asked to begin work on this case in May of 2023,
Jemima and her just became best friends.
That was not on my
what was the
bingo card.
catalyst for you to begin working on this?
I was contacted by Mr. Tully and then contracted, a SAO was signed, and I began work on the initial request to look at those two search terms on January 29th. Does that answer your question?
Sure.
Okay.
Was there a certain claim that was lodged that you would have focused on?
I was to focus on the two search terms from January 29th, 2022.
And would you inform why? Was there any context to that?
Probably, I don't recall the exact conversation that I had with the DA's office and Lieutenant Tully at that time, but I'm assuming that I was given that context. I have in my notes that I was to look at those two searches on that date and do an analysis about those.
Were you asked to reach any particular result?
No, I was asked to provide my report, not to reach a particular result.
Were you asked to reach a conclusion that the 227 timestamp was inaccurate?
No.
When you engaged in your analysis, was it independent of the district attorney's office?
My analysis was independent of the district attorney's office. I actually, in the first case, had very little communication with the district attorney's office during the period of my analysis.
Was there any input from any outside source on what your result or ultimate opinions would be?
No.
Would you ever allow anybody to affect your input?
No.
Throughout the course of your efforts with this phone, have there been changes to software?
Absolutely. As mentioned on direct, software updates are near monthly.
I want to ask you about changes to the Celebrite software. You were asked about certain reports you wrote. Were the reports that you wrote relative to different requests for analysis?
Yes.
The report regarding report number 3, regarding changes to Celebrite software, was that report limited to the timestamp change, or was it to include other efforts?
The scope of that report, may I review what I have documented as the
Please.
scope? I believe we're talking about report 2. That's the one about the Celebrate change.
Yes.
And I have the request was to understand changes made in a newer version of Celebrate Physical Analyzer to artifacts pertaining to the timeline of a particular Google search on January 29, 2022, namely How's Long to Die in Cold.
When you looked at the Celebrite software and report, was the timestamp characterization changed or removed?
Yes, it was removed. That timestamp in the version starting in May of 2024, Celebrite actually removed that, and they put a release note stating that it was due to the ambiguity and potential for misconstruing the meaning of that data.
Was there any other releases informing other reasons why that was changed other than the potential that somebody could misconstrue, misinterpret, or distort the information?
Can I read Celebrite's own statement?
Please.
Celebrite's statement in
To yourself.
to myself? Okay, roger that. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Why? I don't like it.
Yeah, it's not that big.
Can you repeat the
Share with
question?
us, was there
Just imagine her giving
Brandon.
Brennan another while watching the most recent Star Trek movie. Case needs to be dismissed. I couldn't agree with you more, Brendan. And I will
Brennan,
now go.
It's date night tonight, and now I have to bleach my brain and shave my legs. Thank you.
Or maybe it's just a good starting point.
any reason other than the concern about misinterpreting? the
They
report?
said that
So what's your
my understanding is that it is not a reliable timestamp, and that is why Celebrite removed it.
You were asked about Axiom. Axiom, is it the same or different?
Magnet Axiom and Celebrite Physical Analyzer are two different tools that both do forensic analysis of mobile phones.
You were asked whether Axiom still has a timestamp that was similar to Celebrite before the change.
Axiom shows what I spoke to on direct, where they have it as a parsed versus carved result. And so that particular result shows in the suspended StateDB artifact as carved.
Do companies like Axiom and Celebrite
I actually say Roger sometimes.
Well, she says it because she was a Marine, right? And it's an Army thing. But if I had to guess, if I had to guess, I would say that she goes there when she's essentially in soldier mode, right? Like when you're rattling off questions and you're over it and you're just like,
Yeah.
Roger that. I think that's what she does because she's done it twice
Okay.
now.
Valhalla, what was her MOS?
Intel, I think. I think we know this.
Yeah, she's Intel.
I think, yeah.
And I will also
Well, that
sometimes say,
explains why a lot of
Wilco.
things got through because she just didn't know what information she was supposed to be looking for, and it would be onerous.
Do you ever say Wilco?
Oh yeah, we'll comply. Wilco.
Yeah.
Wilco. It's a radio
Releases
term.
update information about how to interpret the reports.
So Axiom actually has a document
Imagine
that's
how
released with it called
boring
the
it is
Artifact
hanging
Reference
out
Guide,
with Wilhelm
and that
I.
actually gives a brief
Roger.
description of the fields and of
Should I
artifacts.
go get a beer?
All
Wilco.
tools, when they release new artifacts,
I'm
they
going to get a
put out in a release
You
notes.
get a beer.
Not
Wilco.
all artifacts are clearly documented that are parsed. However, all of the vendors regularly put out webinars and blog posts that explain their new artifacts, but not necessarily all.
Is there any releases or
Blog
cautions?
posts. I'm
on
so
the same
glad
page?
we're getting info from blog posts.
Axiom, in their artifact reference guide for this artifact, does speak to the possibility of misinterpretation and states that the timestamp can be earlier than the search had occurred, based on what different reasons could cause that timestamp.
Let me ask you about a Faraday bag. You said that best practices is to isolate an item in a Faraday bag.
That's correct.
Do you have any information, or did you know the travel of Mr. O'Keefe's phone that night, or where it went after?
I'm sorry, can you clarify the time period?
On January 29, 2022, from say 6:04 in the morning until later that afternoon.
I did not have access to that information.
When you analyze data from certain devices, are they always placed in a Faraday bag immediately after an incident?
There's a lot of times when this is situation dependent. An example of when you would not put something in a Faraday bag is when you have a deceased victim and you're going to be using their biometrics to possibly unlock the device. Because a Faraday bag is enclosed and then can't be opened, if your intent, if you don't have the password, is to use a deceased person's fingerprint to unlock the phone, we don't want to put the person's finger in the Faraday bag. So usually those phones would not be Faradayed, but they would typically have airplane mode enabled or SIM card removed. But no, SIM card removed doesn't actually work on iOS, so I won't get into that.
Understanding or having the opinion that this item was not placed in a Faraday bag at 6:04 in the morning, does that in any way affect your opinions about the data that you analyzed on this phone and the conclusions that you reached regarding Mr. O'Keefe's phone?
It does not have any impact on the conclusions other than the fact that it wasn't Faradayed and more data came in. So we have additional data.
You were asked a very specific question about History DB, and it was simply whether or not How's Long to Die in Cold, whether it appeared in History DB. That isolated question, does that provide any context for you and your analysis and conclusions about how
No, it's evidence.
long to die in cold and that it occurred at 6:23 and 6:24 the next morning?
The absence of the History DB artifact doesn't mean that that search didn't occur at that time. We have multiple corroborating artifacts, which is usually what we look for, 2 artifacts that demonstrate is like very good. You don't necessarily need that. But in this instance, we have both from the Mobile Safari plist, which tracks the history, as well as the Knowledge C DB. So we do have 2 artifacts showing that those searches were done at that time. Of course, 6 seconds apart for the difference between the Knowledge C and the Mobile Safari plist.
On direct examination, you were not asked questions about Mr. O'Keefe's phone.
That is
but
correct.
You were on cross-examination, so let me follow up. You have a report that you authored regarding Mr. O'Keefe's phone,
That is correct.
and you had an opportunity to look at the healthcare data for January 29, 2022,
That is correct.
page 6 of your report.
Thank you.
You noted that there were steps that began at 12:11:09 a.m. Is that accurate?
That is accurate.
And the way healthcare data works, you have an understanding whether steps means a person actually took a number of steps, or does it mean something else?
Steps doesn't necessarily mean that you took a number of steps. It's based on the motion of the device. So it could be steps. It could be you're carrying it. It could be that you're in some other kind of motion. You could be on a bicycle. You could any number of things. And the number of steps is based on the presumed gait, based on the input into the Apple Health app in terms of gender and height. So it determines a gait and then prescribes a number of steps, but it is possible for other things to cause steps to occur.
You were asked specifically if you saw that there were reported movement or health steps at 12:21:10 a.m. and specifically pointed out to you notation or characterization of 80 steps. Is that
Let's
accurate?
go. We
That is
just
what's
have to
stored in
let
the
that
database.
die.
I try to clarify, as I did for you, sir, that that's what's stored in the database. I'm not saying.
Yeah, it's not healthcare data. It's Apple Health data. It's Marissa, can you please call Brennan's office and tell them, can you make him understand words?
Can we write an amicus brief as a friend of the court, well, / frenemy of the court? As frenemies of the court, we would like lapel mics. We would like Brennan to STFU and some other stuff. We'll get back to you on that amicus brief.
Less
but make
sighing.
it stop.
And the
Yes.
one who is popping the pens all the time, better stop too, or we will send Jamie there. And she has a specifically set of skills that she will find you.
Saying that 80 steps were taken.
And by the way, in addition to the healthcare analysis, you did some analysis on the movement of a car, didn't you?
For Ms.
I'm going to deny that question.
Can these health steps occur if somebody's holding a phone while traveling in a car?
As mentioned in my report, it's caused by motion. It could be various motions that could cause it. You could be using an elliptical. You could be in a vehicle. You could be on a bicycle.
Nope. Your elliptical can tell, your phone can tell you a difference between what motion you're doing. An elliptical won't track the same as running.
Really?
Nope.
My watch can, I can set it like a Stairmaster because we have an elliptical where you can kind of stop it and just use it as a Stairmaster. So the steps aren't as steep as on a Stairmaster because my back, I have trouble walking on a Stairmaster. And if I don't put it into, if I put it onto like running, it won't count it. Because my hands will be too stationary. But if I put it in, it'll say, okay, you're swaying, you're moving. So, yeah.
It's not necessarily steps taken.
Based on your analysis of Mr. O'Keefe's phone and the report that was pointed out to you on cross-examination, do you have information or opinion where Mr. O'Keefe's phone was located around 12/21/10 while those steps registered?
That's beyond the scope of the process.
That's beyond scope.
It was pointed out to you at 12/21/10 there was a registered 80 steps. Is that accurate?
You tried
is
3
correct.
times now.
And then you were also asked about the last healthcare data, the last movements of this phone. And it was pointed out that that began at 12/31/56 for 20 seconds.
That's correct. Per the data in the database.
And is that the last movement of Mr. O'Keefe's phone that evening before 6:04 that you saw when you analyzed the entire data in the phone?
May I have one moment to review?
Yes.
That appears to be the last before the 6 a.m. hour.
So that 20 seconds, it began at 12/31/56. What was the last movement in seconds in time at that time of Mr. O'Keefe's phone?
I'm sorry, can you repeat?
Yes, if that was a 20-second interval at 12/31/56, what was the last second that evening that Mr. O'Keefe's phone moved?
12:32:16.
And then when you analyze the phone and were asked about these times, is there any movement between that last movement and 6:04:01?
Between the 12:32?
Yes, 12:32:16 and 6:04:01. Any movement of that phone whatsoever?
I do not have anything supporting that in my report.
Do you know what was going on with Mr. O'Keefe's phone at 6:04:01 a.m. on the morning of January 29, 2024?
No, she said 12:20:50 was the last time she saw anything, where he should be driving up and down hills.
22.
I do not know precisely what was happening with his phone at that time in terms of movement. If that's, or are you asking me? I'm sorry. Can you clarify what you mean
Yes.
by the question?
The next movement after 12:32
Is the 6:04.
6:04:01
Correct.
a.m.
Correct.
Do you have any information about where or why there was movement of the phone at that time?
I don't. That wouldn't be inside my digital evidence. I don't believe.
And the last question is the next movement at 6:15:14. Do you know if that phone was being moved by somebody or somebody else than Mr.
The
O'Keefe?
phone was in motion. I do not know. If it could be by person. It could be on a rail car. I don't think it was on a rail car for clarity, but I don't know what is causing that motion at that time.
Thank you very much.
She couldn't tell you that because she didn't really look at it.
We have a moment. Ms. Hyde, you were asked questions by Mr. Brennan just moments ago about Celebrite and release notes. Do you recall those questions?
Yes.
And did Celebrite, beyond stating that their opinion was the 2:20:40 a.m. timestamp was not reliable, did they give any reason at all for why they concluded it was not reliable in that? I'm sorry, we'll wait for the,
Thank you. I appreciate it.
and I'll repeat the question.
Thank you.
Is this normal in towns this size with all these emergencies?
I don't think
What
it is.
I never,
Yes.
I heard an ambulance today and I noticed it because I hear one maybe every 3-4 days. There's 50,000 people living in my city.
You guys are just healthier than us. You don't have red dye number 40. Unless he's going to have a heart attack.
May I, Your Honor? Thank you. In that release note, does Celebrite state any reason for why they wrote not a reliable timestamp?
There are other.
I'm sorry, my
published but
question
not
is, do they
Celebrite?
state in the release note whether there's a reason for why they concluded?
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Your Honor.
Please try not to talk.
Sorry, Your Honor. 2.
There's 25,000 people in Dedham.
Not asking you to read it, just asking whether or not they give any reason for the conclusion, not a reliable timestamp.
One moment, I'd like to review what they wrote. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Oh, you need to see the cross-examination of her.
You're welcome.
Yes, they do. They state that further research since is the reason that they're doing it, that there's further research.
Do they state what that research is?
They don't, but
All right, but they don't state what the further research is.
that is correct. They
All right,
state
now
that
what I'd like
it's
to do is
unreliable.
move on to Axiom.
Mhm.
You were asked questions by Attorney Brennan, and you referred to Axiom as using a different parlance with a timestamp of carved, correct?
Celebrite uses this deleted demarcation or recovered demarcation. Axiom does not do that at all. They speak to how they recovered the artifact, be it that it was parsed. When I say parsed, I mean the item was where it was expected to be in the algorithm, found it, located it, and said it's here, versus carved, which is when they have to go into an unexpected area, such as slack space, which would be the areas that are not yet used or were previously used to extract the data from that.
So Axiom actually recovers the timestamp, but Celebrite does not. Is that correct? Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
Celebrite, currently, previously, when we did the first case.
Right, but currently,
opposite.
Celebrite
Correct.
doesn't, but Axiom does. Axiom recovers to 27:40 a.m., correct? Timestamp? They
That
recover.
is the timestamp that they show for that artifact. Correct.
Exactly. So now I'd like to go back to the next topic, our discussion about Mr. O'Keefe's phone and secured or not. You talked about one example of maybe needing to use a biometric to unlock a phone, and that might be a reason, as I understand it, as to why someone might not put it in a Faraday bag or box. Do I have that correct?
Correct.
Okay, do you know whether the passcode was immediately provided on the phone of Mr. O'Keefe?
I do not have that information.
Assume that the passcode was immediately provided for the phone of Mr. O'Keefe. Can you think of any other reason why that phone wouldn't be put in airplane mode, Faraday bag, or Faraday box?
Best practice would be to put it in a Faraday bag.
Okay. And that phone was obviously not put in airplane mode, Faraday box, or Faraday bag after 6:04 a.m. on January 29, 2022, correct?
Correct.
Now let's go to,
Well, I don't know if at some point past 12 o'clock. My report only goes to noon, so just for clarity, I don't know
Fair enough.
anything past noon.
fair enough, but from 6:04 a.m. until approximately noon on
Correct.
January 29, 2022, at least that time, that phone is not in airplane mode in a Faraday bag or Faraday box, correct?
It would appear such. Because I didn't analyze past that, I don't know if it had been potentially Faradayed and then it broke Faraday and that data, but I don't suspect that based on this. It appears that that data was live. But I just have to speak to the fact that I just don't know because I didn't go past noon.
But you're going past noon.
Right.
I'm not.
Okay.
My
yeah,
question
6
is,
a.m. to
I'm-
noon, it does not appear to be Faraday.
So to be clear, from 6:04 a.m. on January 29, 2022 until at least noon of January 29, 2022, the iPhone of Mr. O'Keefe is not in airplane mode, it's not in a Faraday bag, and it's not a Faraday box, correct?
Unless it was in a broken Faraday bag, like they put it and it was failing. But it does not appear to have been placed in Faraday bag.
All right.
No, I'm just being honest. You should test your Faraday bags. They go bad. I use Dr. Katz's testing methodology, but in 100%,
Dr.
it appears
Katz?
to have been
Wait,
receiving signal for the entire
Faraday?
period and not in a Faraday bag, which
We
would be
got
best
the
practice
Katz
unless
back.
biometrics were needed.
So
I
let's
knew
now
she was
go
a cat
to
lady.
hopefully what are the last two categories of questions. With regard to the iPhone of Jen McCabe, do you have any knowledge as to whether over 200 calls were auto-deleted on her phone? You analyzed it.
We can see that calls were auto deleted. You're asking me if the number of, I just want to make sure I understand the question. If the number of calls that were auto deleted, if that exceeded 200?
My question is, do you know whether there was auto deletions on Jen McCabe's phone? Do you know that?
I'm uncomfortable with the term auto deletions because I don't know what that is inferring.
Okay. Did you analyze her phone at all for deletions?
I analyzed her phone to see if there had been deletions of call logs. And what I found was that there were records that were removed by the system and not recoverable from that database, but were recoverable from biomes.
Understood. Now, what I'd like to do is to address your answer in response to Mr. Brennan's questions, where you said that the issue with regard to Mr. O'Keefe's, or just generally your proposition, that there was no impact on your conclusion because more data had been obtained. Did I get that correct?
I believe my statement was there was no impact on my conclusion with the fact that it had not been in a Faraday.
Right. So isn't it, though, the case that when a phone's not in a Faraday and is therefore active, data can be overwritten.
Yes.
So if data can be overwritten when it's not in a Faraday, you can lose that data, correct?
Is there data that we're concerned? Yes, theoretically. Yes.
Is there data that we're concerned? Yeah, kind of.
Yeah, we kind of, this whole case is about deleting, not
You
deleting.
talked
how
about in
long
response to
dying
Attorney
toll.
Brennan,
It's kind of
the
important.
123156 steps. And you said that last, according to you, last movement 123216. Do you recall those questions?
I recall the questions.
To boil it down, isn't it correct that that phone was moving at that time?
May I check the timestamp again? I
Absolutely.
apologize. There's
No.
a lot of timestamps going back and
Please
forth.
do.
123156? Is that
Yeah, that's the start. Yep.
Oh, yes, this one there definitely is. Yes.
So, doesn't matter what kind of movement, but that phone was moving starting at 1231:56 and still moving until 12:32:16 a.m. on January 29, 2022, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. I appreciate again you answering my questions.
Thank you.
All right, Ms. Hyden, all set.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Or I see counsel about scheduling. First, feel free to stand up and.
Oh, no.
Jen, hey, it's me or her. Either I'm going down, Jen, or you are.
Totally out of context again.
Wow.
To be fair, though, I want to see them both. Okay.
Probably going to take a while. May as well let you know when the rest of the class. So we're on schedule, ahead of schedule. We'll reevaluate that tomorrow, and I will see lawyers and sidebar assessors.
La, la.
Can we just
Wow.
suspend the trial and make Jen and Karen fight each other in a kiddie pool of pudding?
You know what? I approve. I
I
approve.
do. I think you know what? It's the fairest way.
This is
And it'd
long.
be
Not chocolate
entertaining.
pudding though. Not chocolate pudding though,
Ew.
because that gets
What
a little
about
weird looking.
tapioca? That creeps me out.
I'm okay with tapioca.
And it gives us a place to put all the gross tapioca pudding.
I don't know what tapioca is.
Well, imagine a nice,
think
smooth,
anybody
creamy
actually does.
pudding, and then we add these little gelatinous balls into it for no daggone reason whatsoever that look like little frog spawn eggs. And Mo got in trouble because she wouldn't eat frog spawn eggs.
They're yummy.
They're gross. It's a texture thing. I'm like, smooth pudding with little balls in it. How wonderful.
I have no idea what tapioca is made of. Like what the balls are.
Tapioca. It's actually it's made from the tapioca plant.
Oh, I didn't know that was a thing.
It's actually tapioca is
From the
used.
It's from the cassava plant, Mo.
I'm American. It's called the America Doesn't Care. It makes gross tapioca pudding, and I would outlaw it. plant.
Oh, it's the little things in bubble tea. Bubble tea. See, that looks gross. We don't
Yeah.
want chocolate pudding. We don't want chocolate.
Not
pudding.
chocolate. What about
That's bad.
pistachio?
And again,
bad
it's
book.
never the ladies you want mud wrestling that is mud wrestling.
Note to that, there will not be a mud wrestling event at Dollywood unless
Healthy,
you guys
be
are bringing the
nice.
pools.
KY wrestling.
So, what did we learn today, kids?
I have nothing. We learned that I am nowhere near smart enough to be in tech. That's what we learned.
Yes.
And I learned that even though you have the credentials to be smart enough to be in tech, you can be a lazy bunghole and have a god complex and think you're the smartest person in the world and think I don't need to check anything. I'll just
I
make a
would have
report.
rather her use the Jen tone than the "that is correct, you moron." Like,
She
I'm so
reminded me of-
proud of you. You can read. Bless your heart. Yeah, you did read correct, sweetie.
She reminded me of Dolores Umbridge from
Oh,
Harry
yes.
Potter.
That's why I said she
shall
liked
not tell
cats.
lies.
Not in a good way, in a Dolores
no.
Umbridge way.
No.
Is there
Hey,
a good
Luna.
Dolores
Also, can
Umbridge
we
way?
talk about this
think so.
particular thing here today?
Yeah, why would you put lipstick on like halfway through your court proceeding.
I told you.
Like no one noticed, and
Baboon
blush, and
behavior.
blush.
And
The-
blood. I had a side by
Just-
side at one point. on
The
my
woman
computer.
is
It's
as
like, huh.
pale as I am, and then she came out with all rosy cheeks, and she does have beautiful lips. I am not gonna lie, so jealous of them. But what? I mean, look, I have a nerd crush on Alessi too, but I'm also married as you are, ma'am. We don't put on makeup for, well, not our husbands.
She
We
definitely
put it on
got
for other women.
Expelliarmus. That's funny. That's funny.
This is why it's evolutional. You don't believe me, but it is evolution that made, because it looks like back in the day when we were a little closer to our ancestors.
I think it's actually got. I mean, it's the right concept, but I don't think it had anything to do with red butts. It's when women are, most fertile. They have a red hue to them, I guess.
Well,
When they're
also when
flushed.
you become excited, you do get a flush on your
Yeah.
face. It's
When
indicative
they're
of health,
flushed. I
youth,
don't think
and
it's because we had red butts, man.
speak for yourself. Lolly
Close
is
enough.
with that neck. I'm guessing it's just baboon hay bread.
Oh.
But I did what heroes of mine like Steve Gosney and Vices have done before me. I fell asleep on stream.
Attaboy. Attaboy.
And I wasn't drunk.
That is a life achievement unlocked right there.
It's how can you be this bad? That the instant you get a question, you get really snippy and you can't defend your own report. And did you notice what Brennan did? He did even though you have been paid since 2023, you are totally independent. What have he been saying with the Arca guys?
Yeah.
Because they got
Same.
24,000, you're willing to lie. This lady has probably made quite a bit more than $24,000
And I
of
would
this
assume
engagement.
that the percentage for her is way higher than Arca, right? Like Arca made 24K, but that's what, a fraction of 1% of their income for the year. Whereas this lady, she's probably getting paid, and it's probably a substantial percentage of her income, I would assume.
Has the report been published? Because Matty B wants to read it. He understands magic.
None of the expert
He's a
reports
wizard.
is public.
Damn.
So we can't read it. It could be fun if you understood the language to see what, if anything, was going on.
You can't
I'm
FOIA
still
it?
waiting on my pizza.
I don't know how the sunshine laws are in Massachusetts.
Oh, I don't either.
Also, I'm also thinking of how could one make a pancake waffle? And I must work on this. This is my new life mission.
But it would be counterproductive because, well,
It's the
you
same-
use you have those weird thick pancakes, which is really stupid. We have the right ones, which are the thin ones.
Those are
Those
terrible.
grapes.
No, it's the best in the world.
No, it's like a flimsy
I
frisbee.
can't stream with Yangst.
It's a pancake. Pancake. It's not a sheet of. burnt
I do
dough.
like Dutch babies though, and those are considered
Let me make a stupid omelet out of pancake batter. That's the stupidest damn thing I've ever heard.
Valhalla and Baker. I think we're looking at this completely the wrong way. As semi-fluffy people, it's a carb. Let's come together right now over carbs.
It's a bread product. I'm here for it.
Is it bad for you? Will it put meat on your hips? Absolutely. Then we should all unite.
You need the thin one, and you put Nutella on it.
Ew.
You don't eat a pancake this thick with no taste, and it's just let's eat.
It's. You can put chocolate chips in it. You can put blueberries in it. You can cover it in syrup and butter. It's amazing.
I understand why you fight at Waffle House, because if someone served this amount of boring batter to me, the light roasting, and then Nutella, and then you roll it up and you eat it. Oh, it's the
A little
best.
strawberry syrup on that thing. Let it get all soaked into the
No, you
batter.
use strawberry
oh,
jam.
That is good.
Or maybe a little. You put a little jam on it, and you put some powdered sugar on. Ah,
You're destroying a good thing.
you don't know a good thing because you eat American
Okay.
pancakes.
Oh my God, Baker, what about a waffle crepe? You make the
But you
crepe
can't
and you put
because
it
a
into a
crepe
waffle.
is a crepe is
No,
less
but
than a millimeter.
I am trying to bring in the new fat food of the century that combines the loveliness of a waffle with the nooks and crannies with the awesomeness of a pancake. And yet I bring you into this creation of something good and new after this day of terrible, and you're just crapping on it.
Diana G is still wanting pizza. I think I'm gonna make pancakes tomorrow. I'm just gonna sit here and look Valhalla in the eyes. And he's gonna sit there. Well, let me get this boring dry that I need to pour 45 gallons of syrup over so anyone can get it
Delicious,
down
sir.
because it'll
Delicious.
just stick in your throat because it's the other one is light and fluffy. Oh, it's great.
Super dainty. Super dainty. You keep your stupid French stuff. Ugh. Tomorrow you better show up with a beret. eating
No, I
crepes with a
want whatever
beret and
those
a cigarette
pastries
stick.
are with the chocolate stuffed inside, covered with sprinkles. If you could bring enough for the class, please, because those sounded
I actually
yum.
have some in my freezer. I could defrost them till tomorrow and show you what it is. How about a stroopwafel? Isn't that just a waffle?
I have no idea what that is.
Isn't that a
They're not fried. You stay out of this, Fed.
Yeah, the French just made it. Oh, crepe. It's a pancake.
fair?
Not cannolis. No, it's a ramkula.
Ooh, I love cannoli.
Who doesn't?
Cannolis are great.
I'm going to be honest. I'm not a huge fan of cannolis. They're okay.
I never had one.
They're just like whipped cream stuff. Puff
No,
pastry.
they're not whipped cream. It's mascarpone, or no, it's
There you
ricotta.
go.
It's ricotta cheese.
Well, maybe that one
Leave the
was
gun,
delicious.
bring the cannolis. I'm gonna go to bed because it's
Now I really
It's only
want
10
egg on it.
o'clock.
Now
I
I
can
want
sleep before
baklava
midnight
for
today.
some reason. Damn.
I have been up since 5 a.m. this morning. So
I
been a
have
long
a
day.
couple errands to do before it gets dark. Luckily, we're getting out of here early.
Woohoo.
tomorrow we will not have Miss Hyde back on the stand.
Thank
that alone
God.
should be a reason to come back. I'm
Yes,
guessing
please.
because let's do the evidence. Random civilian, police officer, tail light, data. Tomorrow will be a hobo 2 towns over to tell you how cold it was that night, where he almost froze to death. And he will be talking to his invisible friend, who is a 2-meter high bunny rabbit, and will be paid in fentanyl. It's going to be interesting.
Honestly, that would be the highlight of this case.
Oh, God.
I wouldn't put him past Brennan to do that. Roger
I
that.
wouldn't put it.
Who is the next witness? It's a hobo from 2 towns over.
We
I'm
don't
guessing
know.
it's going to be the woman in the heavy petting zoo, to be honest.
They've got to bring Proctor or Yuri or Higgins or Brian out. It's got to be somebody good soon. They can't let it all wait till the end so they get blown out of the water at the very end. It's got to be coming soon.
By the way, I made a new book today.
Uh-oh.
How are you
Yes.
falling asleep and still being productive? Because I'm over here like,
Well, I got up at 5 a.m. I did an hour stream, and then I got bored because my brother had a sore throat, so I didn't have to do the doggy sitting today. And then I thought, what is a man to do with the rest of his day? And then I wrote a book.
oh my God,
That
you're
was one
twice
with
book
dead on
author.
top.
You are double the author Plevin is.
Dalton.
I'm thrice the book author.
Oh.
Thank you very much.
Well,
I
I
have
can only
made,
count up to 2 most times.
I made the No Drama Llama. Then I made
I forgot the No Drama
the
Llama.
then I made the one about the farm, and
The animals, yeah.
and there's a little Easter egg in there because remember I am 3 languages, so I misspelled mystery just
A little bit.
to put in. Well, it's in Danish. That's what mystery is. But I thought let's make fun of Pleven.
Outstanding.
I love it.
What if any snow was there? 3.3 inches over the last 24 hours. What if any was the hardness of the ground? Kind of like cement, maybe.
Kind of.
Did we ever get No, we didn't get a confirmation
No, he said it
about
was
how
gonna be
hard the ground
frozen.
was.
He said it would be frozen, but I don't believe him.
No, because we did the math.
Yeah. We looked at the weather. Also, I've had to dig in cold ground. Like I know that it takes a little while to freeze just because
All right, but
ground
Valhalla,
says 32.
did you note down your measurements in cat-related measurements? So how deep was the ground? Could a cat, get through it? How many cats would it take to dig a foot in an hour? I feel like we need cat-based measurements for all weather phenomenon now.
Terrible. Terrible.
And LDR says still 75 books behind Gosney, and I'm never
true.
catching him. And
No.
yes,
True.
this is the bad weather cat. Just if you're wondering what the book is about. Available at all major retailers that sells my book, which is only one. And it's not a major
direct
retailer.
line. Yeah. Your
Does the
email
cat need a
address.
It's my
leaf
spring
blower?
store. How is it so easy to lie for these people? Well, they will just say that it's not a lie. It's just it's mistaken.
Yeah, if you noticed the expert, this last one, it was never a fault on her part. It was always a typo when she
Yeah.
forgot something. I don't know how something you forgot to type is a typo.
Yeah, that's not a typo.
I mean,
No.
that's a mental delito, but it's not a typo.
I
And
think the
anytime
state
she
should have to
misstated
prove he
stuff.
died by vehicle before any of the other crap is allowed in. At least mention that he was hit by a vehicle,
Something.
because other than opening statement with isn't evidence, we haven't heard anything about John O'Keefe being hit by a vehicle.
No.
It's not a lie if you believe it. Exactly. But let's get out of here. Let's get to bed. Ciao, y'all.
Yes.
Jen! Misreads.
Yes.
Jen!
Get cut and dry. Pretty simple. Just pin it on the girl, right? Pretty simple. Just pin it on the girl, right?
Objection.
Pretty simple. Just pin it on the girl, right?